What are your biggest fears? In Southwest Michigan, they say that urban legends are merely fiction, and that ghosts and the supernatural aren't actually real. Well, I'm on a mission to prove that not only are these urban legends real, but they are hidden in plain sight. Welcome to another investigation of urban legends by PhantomOfDarkness. You never know what you may get.
I played the game of terror and lost it fair and square. Sitting alone in this haunted house tonight, playing the Ouija, taking turns, getting premonitions from the witch's den. They're screaming inside my head. The table shakes, the water trembles inside the drinking glass. Floor creaks, the wind whistles just a little bit louder. The plant just steers by itself. I can't hear myself think when the devil starts its laughter. I drop to my knees. Have I awakened the beast? What have I released? Toying with the dangerous game, whatever the cost, whatever, summoning everything and all the dread. Am I the sacrificial lamb, the target inside? Every time I sit down and play these games, as the devil erupted. So I'm driven under this bloodstained moon. I'm seeing double the trouble. I'm seeing doppelgangers and poltergeists. I've seen the devil, I've seen its eyes, and there's no escape door from here. You're cornered and pinned to the ground. You're out of luck this time. I said you're out of luck this time.
Deliver me from these infernal hiccups!
Worries and ghosts and specters and their religious connotations have existed for centuries, and there's no shortage of these tales from around the world. I bet in every single town, in every single house, or some old historic building or chapel, there's an urban legend about just about everything from tales of the vanishing hitchhiker to Bloody Mary. But right here in southeastern Michigan, you can give places like England and Europe a run for its money. With its historic Greek Revival era architectural and Romanesque buildings that can make even fancy UNESCO World Heritage sites turn their heads in awe. Take, for example, this historic church just down the road from me in the rural village of Salem, Michigan. A historical treasure built in 1864 with an attached cemetery with a fence that dates back to 1909. There was even a movie filmed here in 2012. And it was this church that led me down the rabbit hole of urban legends and feel-good ghost stories. I started to wonder, what are the stories around my area that would inspire me to make this video? And so I began my research and uncovered that there's a lot more than meets the eye. And this is more than just a little bit of historical significance. These are real live locations with a haunted past that is so incredible. I jumped at the opportunity to document the creepiest locations that I could find.
There was a girl that had a spirit kind of tormenting her.
Yeah, a young woman whose job there was to come in very early in the morning, sometimes around 4 o'clock in the morning, just to get things straightened out, cleaned up, and ready for the morning crew to come in and do their prep work. and she would be there doing basically janitorial things by herself. And she began to be, what she said, tormented by one of the spirits in there that, especially in the upstairs women's ladies' room, who would suddenly stand in the doorway. Sometimes in other places of the hotel, give her a push, a shove, and frightening things that after a while she just decided she couldn't continue working there, so she quit. When I heard about this, I'd already investigated at the hotel a couple of times with my people, and I asked Corey if he could contact her and have her come in and tell her story, and he said he probably could not get her to do so. She was that frightened to come back, but she did say okay, she would come in. And so one night my group and I were there, and she came in, and she told us the caveat was we were to be no further away from her than 6 to 10 feet at any given time. She was that frightened.
You want to play a game? Follow me.
There is something undoubtedly tranquil about the area I live in. But there's also legends that will keep you up for days. In trying to investigate stories and locations of hauntings, particularly with related to haunts, I have no idea what it is, but something about nuns and priests and places of worship just makes me feel uneasy when it comes to the paranormal. Just looking at these old relics of the past and knowing the lives that cross paths here and then ultimately met their demise, for them to come back as otherworldly spirits and being alone or inside these places or in cemeteries, it just gives you the creeps. But it wasn't until I found out about the headless nun tale here in town that I really started to question if this area was a hotbed for being the most haunted place in America. Arguably. South Lyon, Michigan is a town just west of Detroit. It was originally settled in the 1830s, when it was first referred to as Thompson Corners, when 3 pioneer men named Dunlap, Thompson, and Letts arrived in the area as skilled blacksmiths. They were among the very first to develop homes in the forest and woods, facing challenging journeys to establish farms and community. They built homes and established early schools, and helped form the foundations of the Lyon Township Society. By 1833 to 1834, log schoolhouses were built, Lyon Township organized, and by 1873, Thompson's Corners officially incorporated as the village of South Lyon, named for its location within the historic township. It was known as an important stomping ground for railroaders in the 19th century, as a key transportation hub. In 1867, a man named Hiram Godfrey opened up a tiny little hotel, which was subsequently owned by Henry Whipple, which at the time was called the Whipple House, and is referred to now as the South Lyon Hotel, notoriously known today to be the most haunted building in town. What makes it even creepier? Well, I'm glad you asked. The building was originally built over a cemetery built directly on the same property. That's right. This historic building, which was used for the sole purpose of housing guests staying in town, was built over the graves of the dead, and for some reason, they thought it would be a great idea to then dig out the bodies and relocate them to a different location. I needed to bring these events up because if we're to get to the bottom of the headless nun tale, then we need to know if there's paranormal activity that exists in this town in general. And I definitely found a lot. In 2016, a fire destroyed the hotel and was rebuilt, But throughout its 150-year history, visitors and workers have reported some of the most insane paranormal activity you can possibly imagine. Some of the most iconic paranormal experiences include the staff members hearing spectral voices, shadows, and items even moving on their own. They reported glasses falling off racks, TV switching on and off, and disembodied voices in the upstairs women's restrooms. In fact, staff frequently hear someone moving around in the next stall, only to find the room empty. Now, all this might sound really frightening. Even makes you want to not go to this place in South Lyon. But I can assure you the restaurant serves great food. And if you're already interested in the paranormal, I'd suggest you go, but other paranormal incidents involved a mysterious woman dressed in a pink dress, floating around, believed to be Alma Russell, seen in room 4 in the 3rd floor window. Another spirit named Omar, who may have been responsible for the 2016 fire, and ghost presences touching and watching guests there. Guests have reported seeing the apparition of a little girl within the hotel as well. With all these paranormal encounters allegedly occurring in the South Lyon Hotel, and like I said, it being built on top of a former cemetery, you'd think you'd expect a lot of hauntings. But this next one is quite a thrill because it involves a lot of poltergeist activity, but also shocked me when I discovered this myself. Jerry Hunter, whom I shared speaking of the hotel earlier on in this video, and spoke on the Michigan Haunted podcast, has visited the hotel for paranormal research and documentation. And it was here where he mentioned a female employee he met was allegedly scratched by a malevolent spirit. When Jerry and his team entered the hotel to investigate with the woman, she suddenly panicked and warned his team about the angry ghost screaming, "He's here." She was then thrown against a cooler. The team yelled, "What do you want from her?" That's when she felt her back stinging and burning. And that's when they lifted up her shirt to reveal that she had been scratched with the word "you" spelled backwards. Here's the photo that Jerry took. Just down the street opposite the South Lyon Hotel. The city also boasts a historic building that, rumor has it, may hold ties to the notorious Ghost Nun legend, as the building itself is one of the oldest in town, and built in 1855, according to this plaque on its wall. It's a place where you can get a coffee or a drink, and honestly gives off a nice cozy British pub atmosphere. But what exactly does the Ghost Nun role play here? So the headless nun was a curious case. Allegedly, this building was said to have been a good meetup spot for Civil War veterans back in the day. But the information is spotty at best. It was a building where veterans would congregate to host events and discuss stories about the Civil War. Well, one story alleges that in 1890, a Civil War ceremony was going on in this building. A nun walked by the window, pointed at one of the men sitting inside the building through that same window. The next day, she ran into that same man and cursed him allegedly for having a heart of sin. The man was found dead the next day, and was rumored to be because of the nun that walked by and pointed. It was due to this event that people started suspecting that this nun in town had supernatural powers, that she was only masquerading as a nun to avoid suspicion, to blend in with society. So in the 1890s, a legend states that the townsfolk got so worried that she might terrorize the entire town that they locked her in the tower in the old church here, where she starved to death. And some even say her dying words were, "Your town will rot, just as I am." So the jury's still out on whether I believe this tale or not. But it is definitely creepy. Whether this is just a fable or legend people just like to discuss for the thrill of the scare is uncertain. But it's said that her name is Lady Geneva, and she is said to haunt the old Presbyterian church, staring from outside the window and from the tower. And if you hear the bell ringing in town, it's because Lady Geneva is ringing it. Either way, you can't say that this story isn't entertaining. And while I like to believe that there is a Lady Geneva that is still haunting the streets, or that any of these stories are true, I guess we'll never truly know. But there's another location that I'd like to check out. Another spot where Lady Geneva's ghost is said to roam. And that's where the old schoolhouse and Greek Revival church resides. Although she supposedly died long before the small white church was built, she's said to roam around this church as sort of a comfort. And I guess that makes sense. Since she was a nun, she would be drawn to religious buildings. In some accounts, she's said to be wandering aimlessly without her head. And if you walk past late at night, you just may catch a glimpse of this poor soul. And that's where this headless legend comes into play. If you're wondering if I've personally had experience encounters with Lady Geneva, and unfortunately, or fortunately for myself, since I'm terrified of ghosts, I haven't witnessed her, or really any paranormal activity in this area. But ever since I've started researching and putting this video together, I've been getting the occasional dream. In one dream I had, I was taken back in time to the old days, and I saw the nun. Suddenly I see a mob of people and it pans to the nun. And she's being chased inside an old church. And then I just see her looking aimlessly out the window. And then there's a priest. I woke up creeped out. But I can only say that it's just a coincidence. And nothing really paranormal. So, what did I find out about this town? And what can I conclude about this urban legend? Or these scary hauntings? Is this area legitimately spooky, with so much paranormal activity? All I can say is, whether it's at the hotel, or in the cafe, or right here in the cemetery, there's a history with people that had a life story. Just like you and me. And maybe some of them have truly stuck around even after death. But I looked to see if I could find a grave for Omar or Lady Geneva, and I couldn't find one. But there are Civil War vets buried here, and even graves of those who were born in the 1700s, which honestly surprised me. Earlier I mentioned that story about the Civil War veterans, and I think there could be more credibility to it, although that's just my theory. Because of the amount of Civil War veterans buried in this historic cemetery. So maybe part of the story is actually in fact true. Of course, I can't confirm or deny that Lady Geneva was even real, or that she cursed the entire town, or that one of the Civil War veteran encounters that she had actually succumbed to death based on her curses. But with the amount of history here, there could be a lot of paranormal activity. And what better way to discover that than being in a cemetery? When I was doing some research on the deaths of some of these people that used to live here in the history of the South Lyon city, there was one that stuck out to me. When the headstone read, "Killed by the cars." Curious. I looked it up and in fact found out that a couple had died in 1896 and they were run over by a train when the man thought he could outrun the train across the train tracks. Unfortunately, they lost their life in their horse and buggy. But I will say that near their massive headstone that's been made in their honor, you do feel a kind of paranormal and weird energy. Maybe it's because I'm drawing it in because I keep talking about it and I've done this video for so long. Either way, it really immersed me. But really, the energy just feels like there's something going on here. So maybe I do feel a bit of the paranormal energy somehow. If you ever get a chance to get here, I recommend you do an investigation or something, or try one of the ghost tours in the autumn. I think you'd have a blast. If there's any urban legends that you'd like me to investigate, so I can do more filming, or if I can do some true scary ghost stories in the filming format, let me know what interests you. As always, your feedback is really appreciated for these videos, and don't forget to hype the video if you want to see more of these in this format. Do you believe any of these encounters that you heard in these stories? Or do you think it's just a figment, just an anecdote that generations of families brought down as a sort of ghost story to scare people? And what about the hauntings at the South Lyon Hotel? Which ones do you believe are real? You decide in the comments.